They do not know that I have written a book.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Arrivals, where I talk to first generation immigrant women about the journeys that shape who they are today. Today's guest is Urmi Hossain, a financial professional, author, speaker, and podcast host. She is based in Montreal, Canada, and was born and raised in Italy to Bengali parents. Urmi shares in this episode what it was like growing up between cultures, navigating questions of belonging, and how those experiences inspire her to empower other women in her life today through mentoring, leadership, and storytelling. Here's my conversation with Urmi. Okay, Urmi, thank you for being here again. Very excited to talk to you, and thanks again for doing this on a Friday.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can you introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
For sure. So my name is Urmi. I am based in Montreal. I work in the financial sector, but I am also a woman who wears many hats. I'm a self-published author, speaker, YouTuber, mentor, and I'm part of an organization called Women in Leadership, and I'm the co-chair of the Montreal chapter.
Yes. I want to start talking about your career actually and working in the financial sector. You mentioned to me before that you really love it and that you wanted this job specifically that you have. What is it that you love about it? Just walk me through a little bit of what you do every day.
So I work in wealth management, and what I love about it is that basically when I was in university, I did a degree in finance, and the way I like to describe it is that I was love at first sight, and it still is for me. Like it's an unconditional love that I have for the actual subject, for the actual topic, and I think what I like about finance in general is that it's very dynamic, which is very much similar to my personality. Like I'm very dynamic, and so is finance. And there is a qualitative aspect to it, there is a quantitative aspect to what I do. So that's what I very much enjoy. And there is also an analytical aspect as well. And the fact that I am a woman in finance, I feel like for me, it's a big accomplishment, like my own personal accomplishment that I manage, to be where I am. And so it's pretty much that basically.
Yeah. How long you worked in finance at this point?
It's been 10 years that I'm in the industry, but I did not start doing the things that I really wanted to do. I was still in finance at the beginning, but I was not, it was more like an entry level job that I took when I was when I first graduated. And then I took a compliance job. I did that for a couple of years, and now I'm in wealth management.
Awesome. And of the work that you do to empower women, also walk me through a little bit of that and why you decided to start getting more involved in this.
For sure. So the work that I do with Women in Leadership, it's so just to give you a brief introduction of Women in Leadership, it's a nonprofit organization that has been around for 25 years, and it's an organization that is based in Canada. So each city of Canada has a chapter, and what we do is that we run, like the chapters are run so that we can basically empower the women in each city through networking opportunities, in-person events. We have also mentorship program. And basically I run the Montreal chapter along with 3 other women, and we organize like speaking events, networking events, brunch, where we bring women from different industry to basically share their stories, their career stories, and to connect with other women in Montreal. So the whole purpose is really to build connection, build community, and to help the women to be the leaders they are meant to be, basically.
That's awesome. And do you mentor women as well?
Yeah, but it's not with Women in Leadership. I do it with another organization. It's called Empower M, which is based in Canada. It's located in Ottawa, and it's mainly focused on empowering women of color. So I mentor women of color. Yeah.
In what way do you mentor them in their careers, in their leadership?
Yeah, it's pretty much their careers typically. Like and also like personal growth as well. It's not just professional growth. Maybe there are like women who just need a little bit of more confidence. They want to start something, but they're not sure where how to start. Maybe it could be women that have just moved to Canada and they're trying to understand how to navigate, the workforce, maybe how to get outside of their comfort zone. So it's really just to help them also like on a personal level. It's not always professional level. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you started to gain more confidence in yourself in order also to help other women? And I know that you're a speaker as well. Yeah, I just want to understand how did you started to improve that with your own work?
So I think for me, it just came a lot with like small actions that I have taken in the past. I think I always had this desire of like giving back and helping women because it also comes from my own personal story of how I see women, always treated like we're always like, seen as the weak gender, even though I don't like to call it that way. Like we're just, sometimes we're like segregated, we're like neglected. No one gives us enough importance, especially in certain parts of the world. And so I was like, you know what? I want to change that. I think I can do that. But sometimes I also like that type of confidence. But I started to work on like my inner self and start to do some, reflection on how can I help other people. I talked to other women, and then I was like, you know what? I have this desire of helping people and I can do it. So it really started with like small actions that I took a couple of years ago. And I started to look for organizations where they were looking for mentors. Usually this mentorship program are like really short. They're really short cohort, maybe like at 6 months. And then, like once it's over, I would move to the next organization that were looking for mentors. And I really enjoy the connections that I have with other women.
Yeah. And what about public speaking? Because of course that's that's a job that for many people takes years. How is
Yeah,
it for you?
public speaking, I do it with Toastmasters. I don't know if are you familiar with Toastmasters?
No, I was gonna ask you about it too. Mhm.
Okay, so it's a nonprofit organization which has been established in 1924 by Ralph Smedley in California. And so it's been around for 100 years. So basically each city of a country, like each area has a Toastmaster club. Like we have so many in Montreal, there are so many in New York, like anywhere you go, you will find a Toastmasters club. And basically you get to work on your public speaking skills. So it's a public speaking club where basically like every week, once a week, everyone gets together. There is an agenda that you follow. You prepare on on some speeches and you deliver in front of the crowd. So it's a peer-to-peer like learning system. You get to learn by observing other people. You get to learn through feedback. So you basically we're there to help each other and support each other. So that's how I've been basically working on my public speaking skills. I joined Toastmaster in 2019. So it's been now we're in 2026. So it's been a while that I am with Toastmaster.
Mm. Anyone can join.
Anyone can
Yeah.
join. Yeah,
Okay.
anyone can join. And then, of course, when you become a member, you pay a membership fee, an annual membership fee. But it gives you access to many things. Like when you are confident enough in your public speaking skills, you can also run for competition, area level. They do competition also at national level. So it's quite big. It's quite known because it's been there for 100 years, and the purpose was to develop your public speaking skills, but there is also like leadership skills that you learn. There is also, analytical skills that you learn, critical thinking. There's so many things that you get to learn from being part of this master.
That's interesting. I'll check them out for sure. What about your content on YouTube, for me, and your podcast as well? Was the purpose of that also just sharing more of your own content, or public speaking?
Yeah. When I started my YouTube channel, it was like a random thing that I did. I was just curious. And, like I remember when I did my first, video, it was just me speaking like straight to my camera, no editing, no nothing. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I don't even think it's going to, go viral. For some reason, that first video got like 10,000 views. I think it's one of my most watched videos. I'm just like giving tips on how to pass like finance exams. And when I initially did it, it was because I was like, you know what? I'm going to work on my public speaking skills and so forth. And then I started to like do interviews, invite people from the financial sector to share tips and advice on how to pass the exams. And then with my own podcast, it was more because I wanted to share like the story of immigration and bring on people who are like exposed to different cultures, bring awareness. And so that's why I created my podcast called Stories Beyond Borders.
What was it about that video that you think made it go viral?
I have no clue. You know what? I did no editing. I'm just looking straight on the camera, just talking for 10 minutes. I have no clue.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I'll check it out, but yeah, sometimes very people are interested in very specific content, and it
It,
works.
I know
Yeah.
it's crazy, and with the next ones, and what I was like, I'm gonna put the work, I'm gonna start doing the editing. Those ones are like they don't get that many views as much as the first one.
Hmm. And since then, you've been publishing videos. And
Yeah, I've been publishing video. I'm not completely like um how do you say, like I've not been consistent now with my YouTube channel because I'm really focusing more on my podcast. Um, so yeah, like I try to be consistent more with my podcast right now. Like that's my main focus for now.
hmm. And you're comfortable, well, now more on camera and speaking.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a while. I'm like, yeah, now I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I agree.
And you lived in Montreal for 16 years now, right?
Soon it's gonna be 16 years that I am in Montreal. Yes, that's right.
Why Montreal? Why did you move there in the first place?
It was more for personal reasons that I have moved to Montreal. And when I moved here, I did my university. I majored here in finance, and then I started to work after university. So I'm pretty much like I do have my Canadian citizenship right now. And when I moved to Canada, there's so many things that I was not aware of. Like I remember, I'm being in a city where it's pretty bilingual. You have to speak both English and French, which are not my languages to begin with. Like my main languages are pretty much Italian and Bengali. And so like I always studied in Italian. So when I moved here, I'm like studying in English, but now I'm working in French. So it's quite like I have to be aware of this. Like sometimes I take it for granted, but it takes a lot of effort when you are, using languages that are not yours to begin with. Yeah. So
Yeah, and you learned both French and English when you moved or before?
no, before.
Yeah. When you moved to Montreal, well, how was the transition like? And I'm mentioning this because in part of your book, you mentioned like people asking you where you're from. And that, of course, is always, it becomes annoying. And I know at some point. So, how is Montreal in terms of welcoming immigrants in general? And how was that like for you?
So when I moved to Montreal, I want to say it was a beautiful discovery because like I remember hearing the word Quebec when I was back in high school in Italy, but I was like, yeah, who cares about Quebec, But now I'm finding myself being here and I'm like, oh, okay, now I know where Quebec is located. And so when I moved to Montreal, it was very like interesting to see, like even with the languages, it was interesting to see how when people approach you, they always say hi, bonjour. So you're always approaching two languages and then it's up to you to choose. But it's a very welcoming city. Like there's so much diversity. And that's what I appreciated the most about Montreal because I did not see that when I was in Italy. Like you walk on the street in Italy and all you see is just a lot of Italian people. Especially for me that I grew up surrounded by a lot of Italian people. Like for me to see so much diversity was so beautiful. Even when I went to university, it was the same thing. Like I had friends from different parts of the world. Like I had friends from, China, I had friends from Europe, from, South America. Like it was beautiful because I felt it was an enriching experience for me because I did not have that chance in Italy, for instance. But I did struggle when I moved when people would ask about me. they would ask me, where are you from? And the actual struggle, because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be answering. Do I say I am from Italy? Do I say I'm from Bangladesh? And I remember no matter what answer I gave, people would always question my origins, because I would tell them, oh, I'm from Italy. But then they will look at me and be are you sure about that? Like, you don't look Italian. And then I would tell them, oh yeah, I'm like, I have Bengali origins. I'm from Bangladesh. But even that would make them question, because they would hear my Italian accent when I would speak in English. Probably, I don't know if it's still there. It's probably there, the accent. I'm not sure, but it was much stronger at the beginning. And so I feel like people were always questioning my origin. So I had to really like spend 30 minutes explaining my whole history about my parents moving to Italy, where they came from. And like, it was so much work, because even for me, like, living in Italy, I always moved around. We went from the south to the north. We went to the UK, came back to Italy. It was like, now my parents live in the UK. Like, it's a lot of like geographic movements. So, and I get it. I get it from the person listening. It's hard to keep track of it, because I also have hard time keeping track of this sometimes. And so for me, it was really like a struggle answering that question to people. But I think it was even more of a struggle when they would question it and doubt it. I was like, but why are you doubting it? Like, it's my story. That was this struggle. Yeah.
And now, if someone asks you that, how do you typically respond?
So I usually say I'm Italian Bengali, because I think it was an inner work that I have done through the years to actually figure out myself. It was like, I no longer want to spend 30 minutes speaking to a person and telling them about my origins, but I just want to tell them, I'm Italian Bengali. And if they want specific, I say Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. And I think that really summarizes who I am.
Yeah. Yes, it's yeah, and I heard you mention in another interview, and I think that's interesting how yes, and I don't know how is it in Canada, but in the US, there's of course a lot of perceptions of how someone looks and where they're from, but also asking someone where they're from can be considered like a rude question sometimes, and not in Mexico where I'm from. So I don't know how is it in Montreal if people ask you that constantly.
Like, I don't know if it was because I was in university and you get like acquainted with people, and I think that's normal. You know what I mean? Uh, I mean, I might ask that question right now. Not that often. And so that's why I don't know if it was like just, when you get to make friends and you get to know people, like it's automatic. You ask that question. Um, but now I'm asked that question when I'm traveling. The fact that I'm living in Canada, it adds another layer of complexity, because let's say I'm traveling and people ask me where you're from. Even in that moment, I'm not sure if they are asking me like where I am like leaving, and you want to know where I'm from, like in the sense of, do you want to know that I'm like living in Canada when you ask me where are you from when I'm traveling? Or do you actually mean where I was born? Or do you mean where my parents are from? Or do you mean the place where I have grew up? Because depending on the question, my answer will vary.
Yes, and depending on who's asking you and the circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah. Yes, and the motive that you think people have, which is of course very hard to know.
exactly. I mean, I always try to like think about myself and be like, when I'm asking a question to someone, what is my intention behind that? And usually for me, it comes from a place of curiosity. Like, if someone has a specific name, I would really want to know where their name is from. I want to know the meaning behind it, and I feel like names have so much story. And so I always like to like be a bit more specific. Or if, let's say I hear an accent and I'm curious about the accent, like I go, where is your accent from? But it always comes from a place of good intention, like it's a place of like curiosity.
Yeah. Yes. Um I wish I wish it always came from that curiosity. But you never know sometimes. Um And you grew up in with a Bengali family, but grew up in Italy. And I'm curious today how from both from both sides, from both cultures, I mean, what what do you carry with you? Like what I mean is what parts of your Bengali family do you see yourself bringing still today, and what parts of Italian culture?
I think I carry pretty much everything, but I carry more. So I carry everything, but with a modern twist. That's how I like to define it. Meaning that I take the good part of each culture, but I add my own twist to it, which is something that I wanna carry forward. Meaning that, so for instance, I'm gonna give you a very quick example right now. Um, when I was growing up, I remember like the whole topic of like, let's say, menstruation. Like I remember, there was so much taboo behind it. So much taboo, like even now it's still a big taboo. But now, for instance, I'm currently part of a writing session as a volunteer where we're bringing awareness of how menstruation is seen in different cultures and across different worlds. And I'm like interviewing people, and I want to bring that awareness because I don't want that to be anymore a taboo. So things that maybe were like forbidden, let's say, in some parts of the world, I want to change that going forward. So that's why I say with a modern twist, where I'm like bringing awareness of things, where, for instance, even like how women are treated in many cultures, like sometimes, like I was saying, we're not given so much of an importance. Like, let's say if in a family of four people, you have two siblings, one boy and a girl, usually what happens is that the boy would be given the chance to like study, work, and so forth. Whereas for a girl, it's a bit different. Like women, we're supposed to be, the traditional housewife, staying at home and so forth. But not everyone wants to do it. Like maybe. Maybe some women want to have a career, they want to build a career, they still want to get married and so forth. But I feel like we're never having those type of conversations. Like it's never celebrated the way it is celebrated for men. Like if you see a man, having a great job, making great salary, like there's so much celebration behind it. But if it's a woman, it's not celebrated. So even that, like I'm trying to change that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's very important. Did you talk about this with your parents growing up?
No, because no, it's not something that I openly talk to them about, but it's something that I openly like take actions on. So I deliberately take actions on so many of these things, like, like being part of like a writing session where we talk about menstruation, being part of like women in leadership, mentorship, South Asian women. I mentor a lot of South Asian women. It's because I want to change that narrative going forward. Um, I don't think I need to talk about this specifically to anyone from the community or to my parents because I'm not going to be able to change the way they think. It's just so hard. For certain generation, it's just so hard. But I do think that because they do have two daughters as me and my sister, I do think that with time they have evolved as well. But still, for many things, I still think that there's so much preference if, like, I want to say there's so much gender biases. If you had a boy in a family, I feel like it would be so much different. Like it's it's already different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and in your book you also mentioned that it's even very different between you and your sister, how you grew up to each other.
Yeah, it is different. I would say still is because I'm like the oldest sister and there's so much expectations. And what's so interesting about it is that you think it just applies to certain cultures, but then it actually applies it's like a global thing. Like it's not just South Asian thing. It happens in other cultures as well. The expectations that, if you're the oldest siblings, it all falls on you. You have to make sure that you're a point of reference. You want to make sure that you're being a role model. It's a lot to take on. It's really a lot to take on sometimes. And I do think the younger siblings have it much easier. So much easier.
I'm the younger sibling, and I don't think I had it much easier.
Okay. Fair enough.
I also have a sister, but I do understand those differences between, especially between sisters. I think there is a lot. How much is the difference between age?
5. Yeah.
And she lives in the UK.
Now she lives in the UK. Yeah, that's right. And I do feel like my experience and her experience is quite different because like in the UK there's a big South Asian community. So there are a lot more Bengalis over there. So I feel like because of the way she has been exposed for her like other parts of her life, I think she has a different experience. Like for instance, if you ask me what is my home, I will tell you it's Italy. Even though she's born in Italy, I don't know if the answer is Italy. I'm not quite sure about it. You know what I mean? And she feels more, I would say herself more among like Bengali people, but I feel more myself among Italian people. And I think, where you grew up, how long you stay in a place, it does have an influence on these things afterwards. So
Oh yes, of course. And her living closer to your parents,
exactly.
that she is also, her present is completely different than yours.
Yeah, for sure.
It, and I'm curious also. I keep bringing stuff in the book. The name of the book, by the way, is Discovering Your Identity, a rebirth from interracial struggle. And one thing related to this that you mentioned as well is that when you visit your parents, you still feel a lot of the things, of course, that you felt as a child, but you still feel that they don't respect. No, I don't know if the word is respect. You tell me, but your feelings are maybe not validated, and you go back in time in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if it's because, I'm always gonna be their kid, and so maybe in their head, like I'm still gonna be that young Urmi. Like maybe they don't see me as an adult. Like I don't know what it is, but it does feel like I go back to my teenage life when I go back to the UK. So it's like I grew up with a lot of limitations, and I feel like it still feels the same when I go back. You know what I mean? Even though like I am in my 30s.
Yeah. I get that. How's your relationship with them from far away?
I do think that distance is better. Personally,
Yeah.
personally, I think distance is better. I do think distance it's way better. Yeah, I definitely like maybe you always want to be closer to your parents and so forth. Like my sisters and so forth. But I think distance it's just healthy for everyone in every sense. In every sense, I think it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. If you lived in the UK, for example, and you imagine yourself working in finance, do you think that you'll be doing all the other work that you do today?
I don't know, to be honest. Sometimes I try to think of my life, like living in the UK and how I would have been. And to be honest, I don't know if I was going to be doing all of these things that I do right now. It's an interesting question. You know what you have just mentioned? Like I talked to my high school friends from Italy, and I tell them, "Oh yeah, I'm doing all of these things and blah blah blah." And they look at me and they're like, "Yeah, of course you're doing all of these things because you were always ambitious, even when you were in high school." And I was like, "Really? I don't recall being that ambitious." And so, like, maybe it was something that I would have carried no matter what. Maybe, but I can't say. Yeah,
Yes, it's hard to tell, but I think once you have that very clear distance from where you grew up and from your family, you have a lot of more freedom to do all these things.
that's it. Yeah.
I want to go back to when you decided to write this first book for the first time. What was the context and what was your family's reaction as well?
So let me respond to the last part first. They do not know that I have written a book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's right. They do not know that. And when I have written my book, what happened is I was getting invited to a lot of podcasts because I wanted to hear this story. And I would just say the story vocally, like that's the only thing that I had. And I was like, you know what? Maybe that could be a topic of a book. And so that's when I started to write the book. And for me, it was like walking down a memory lane because it's just me talking about my childhood, my teenagehood, my life in Italy. And it came easy to me because it's just my life. And I had a friend who, like, I spoke with this friend who also self-published his own book, and I asked him like a bit of the process and everything, and he was like, "Yeah, it's pretty easy." And then he recommended me this other book called How to Write a Book in 30 Days. And while I was in Mexico, actually, it was so funny. While I was in Mexico, I was reading this book, and then I came back and I was like, I'm so determined to write it. But it was not even in like my plan for like to write it in 2022. I think one day I just woke up and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna do it. And it took me for 4 weeks. And right after that, I hired someone to do the formatting, cover page, and then I have it like self-published. And for me, that was a big accomplishment. Like I had no goal of like becoming the bestseller or anything like that. It was just about me telling my story. And I'm so glad that I did that because just recently I watched this movie, and I'm so glad that I watched that movie because it talks about this Bengali guy who's born and raised in Rome. He's the director is also the actor. Like he's acting in the movie, and he's the Bengali guy who basically is born in Rome. He comes from a typical traditional Bengali family, and he's talking about, his life in Rome and how it is, and he's depicting the typical traditional like Bengali family at home and things that talk about. But then outside, when he goes out and he meets Italian people, they usually ask him questions such as, "Oh, so you're Muslim? Do you drink? Do you eat pork?" Same question that I was asked when I was a kid. And then like you see him going to the mosque and praying, and then what happened is he was asking, "Oh, is it gonna be a scene if if I fall in love with someone who is outside of like my community or outside of my religion?" And then in the movie it shows that he actually falls in love with an Italian girl, and it shows that he's scared of like his parents catching him doing these things, and people from the community seeing him these things. So I could relate to this movie a lot, and apparently this movie won a lot of awards because it was something different. And I really enjoyed that movie because I think we need to bring awareness of some of the things that people who are immigrant kids go through that sometimes are we maybe take for granted, but like, being asked constantly, okay, so does it mean you don't drink? Does it mean that you don't eat pork? Like it's like things that we only go through, so
Yeah. What's the name of the movie?
Bangla. Yeah.
Okay. And after you watched it, that's when.
So I watched a couple of weeks ago and I reached out to the director. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, I reached out and he responded to me and I told him how much I enjoyed the book. But I was for my own book, I was inspired by another author who is Pakistani Canadian. And she was my biggest inspiration. Like when I read her book, it's called The Confessions of a Brown Girl. I was like, damn, like I can relate so much to her story. And it was such a great book. And I also reached out to her and I asked her, how did you write your book? And so she also gave me some advice. And that's how I wrote my book. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. About the movie, you probably saw so much of yourself. And how often do you hear about the Bengali tradition in Italy?
Exactly. No, it was a really good movie. And I feel like they did a very good job also at like portraying a Bengali family, which you don't see often because I think it's so much the reality. Like they live in Rome, but their dream job is to move to the UK, which is the dream of every single Bengali person. Like even my parents live in the UK right now, for instance. And so they show that in the movie. And then they show that the Bengali family, like the mother works in a clothing store and she sells like sari. And this is typically what happens in real life. Like women who are maybe, trying to get a job, they usually end up selling like saris and stuff like that. So they did a very good job at portraying that.
Oh, wow. But I didn't know that about Bengali people overall, that their dream is to live in the UK. Why is that?
I'm not sure to be honest, but I know back in the days it was there's so much like facility, like help from the government when you would move. And I think they all took advantage of that. So that's why it was the dream of every single person to move to the UK. Let me tell you this, we did have a big, big inflow of people going to the UK in the last, I would say probably 15, 20 years ago. And my parents too, they moved in 2014. Along with that, even my aunt moved from Italy to the UK. And I have so much family in the UK. It's like, it's everyone's dream to live in the UK. And what's so interesting is that If you go to certain areas, the name of the streets are in Bengali, the name of the metro is in Bengali. You don't even need to know how to speak in English. You go to a store and the person somehow knows how to speak Bengali.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious on why your parents decided on Italy and not the UK from the very beginning.
I think, I probably think it was because it was easier maybe to go to Italy back in the days. And I'm pretty sure it was. Like we're talking about 80s, 90s. So I think it was easier for them to like just move to Italy and then figure out things after that.
Right.
So it was probably that. And we did have a very big immigration of Bengali people back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. And now, even nowadays, we have so many, so many.
Right. And you lived in the UK at some point too, in all this. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was 13, I did live in the UK. And I did appreciate it back in 2004. I did appreciate living there. But now when I think about it, I'm like, there is no way. There is no way I can live there. I don't see myself living there. No.
How about Italy? Do you see yourself there at some point?
No, not in the short term. It's very tough. Honestly, economically speaking, is very tough in Italy. And I see it through the eyes of my high school friends. As much as Italy is my home, I really don't think there is a future for the younger generations. I do see a lot more Italians getting outside of Italy right now. Like there's so many like Italian by blood in the UK. I've seen them in Spain. I think they're like in other parts of Europe as well. It's just so crazy. Like because I go a lot, I travel a lot to Europe, and anywhere I go, like I just hear people speaking in Italian. There's so many now. They're also moving a lot to Toronto now. Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And then in the US, there's a lot of Italians as well. Another thing I wanted to touch on the book, and that is related to what we're saying today, getting asked all these questions about who you are. And you mentioned a lot of course, your parents being very strict with you and in every way. And and you as a kid or as a teenager having to explain to your friends, I just can't be there. I can't go because so it seems like it's something that you always have to over explain yourself culturally and like this is just the way it is for me. So just wanted to highlight that because it's not just a matter of question of where you're from, but because it's like why do you think what they make you do things that you do
yeah,
since you were very young.
yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I really had to over explain myself all the time to my friends, but I saw that more for them. Actually, I saw this for me like a way to educate them because I think it was also new for them to have a friend who was not like them. You know, I was the only one in my whole classroom who was different than the others. I did not look like anyone else, and no one else looked like me. And, you know, the typical thing that teenagers do, you know, you go out, you go to the movies, you have sleepovers, things like that. Like I could never do them because there was a perception that if I did them, you know, people in the community will talk bad about me, or maybe there was a fear that I was going to turn like too much Italian. Like there was so much of that fear that I think it's in every single South Asian parents had basically. So there was that fear, you know, like if I get that influence, I start doing things that I'm not meant to be doing. But for me, there was no such intention, you know, it was just me wanting to try different things, have that typical teenager life. So I remember like those few times that I could go to my friend's house, like so many questions about who's gonna be there. Are there gonna be guys? You know, if they ask you to eat something, just be careful about it. You know, like it was just their fear. And so I grew up with those things and I had to always explain myself to my friends. We used to do like school trips that were longer days back in the high school. So they would take you, let's say, to France for a couple of days, to, you know, Republic for a couple of days. I was never allowed to go. Never. Never, 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 never. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I wish I did that then. So I never even went against my parents because I was like, you know what? It's pointless. You know, I try to get their point as well. I was never a rebellious person either. So I guess it made it easier on them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough. when did you started to feel more liberated as a person? Was it when you moved to Canada or before that?
Yeah, but yeah, I would say yeah, moving to Canada, but even after moving to Canada, I think it took me like a while, honestly. I think it's like maybe with time, maybe the fact that I'm in my 30s, maybe that helped too. You know who you are more confident, you believe more in yourselves, and you stand more for yourself. I think that's what happened. So I think probably with time, but it took me a while to feel that liberation, like I feel like we always live with that fear of being judged, of being seen, not a good person, and I think as kids, we're always looking for our parents' validation. We always want to be seen as like we have achieved everything. But then I realized even with time, it doesn't matter how much I do. It's still not gonna be enough.
Right. Yeah. Even as adults, we look for their validation.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. Looking into the now, I know you're doing a lot of things. What is more exciting to you right now?
I don't know. There's so many things I'm excited about, to be honest. I'm full of like passions and life and joy. Like I really want to do different things. I love doing different things. It gives me a sense of accomplishment when I get to do different things. Like the work that I do with women in leadership, the work that I'm doing now with the writing groups, these are the things that I really look forward because I feel like I'm able to make an impact by taking these actions. And this is like no one is paying me for doing any of these things. I do it because I really want to, like it's coming from a genuine place. So for Women in Leadership, when we did the event for International Women's Day where we had a brunch, we brought speakers, panelists, and we saw the success afterwards. I was like, damn, finally we got to like, I did something, that I always wanted to do. So to be able to see those ideas coming to fruition, like for me, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me motivated. So I want to continue doing all of these things, women in leadership, mentorship, speaking like at different conferences, sharing my stories. I do have a goal, of like writing a second book. I keep saying it, but then I'm like, I did not even sit down and write it. So I'm hopefully, the more I say it, the more I'm gonna become accountable about it. But I do want to continue doing all of these things. Yeah.
Yes, continue writing and maybe a continuation for the first book.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea, like continuation of the first book. Yeah.
Mm. Um, and for any woman listening that keeps hiding herself, that doesn't know anything about these resources that we are very lucky to have, what would you say they could start with to build their personal brand or embrace more of their own leadership?
You know what? One thing that I think is always useful is to participate at those social and networking events that are organized by your community, like your local community. So I'm going to give you like a couple of examples. So I follow a bunch of pages. So there is a journaling club book where all the women meet and they just journal all together. We have another one. It's called Matcha and Pilates. So they drink matcha and they do Pilates. Those things that are like social activities, but also networking opportunity. I think those always spark idea. And so my advice would be to participate to those things because, you might, from one conversation to another, you might get some ideas on the things you want to do. They also have like entrepreneurship groups as well that are led by women and who want to help other women. Like I participate to a lot of them, even though like I don't know anyone. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I go there to get ideas and to know how they do things. There's so many things, even participating into panel session, networking, let's say speaking events, just to like have an idea, like be curious about it, like you don't need to be one of them to do these things. You might become one of them, but it's up to you to like participate to those things. And I think those are like a great way to also learn yourself and see if it could be an interest to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of times feel that we need to be one of them to actually even be in the room, which is not true. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rumi. I know you have to go soon, but I really appreciate it. And yes, I hope everyone reads your book, and I'll put all your links here as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to wrap up with?
I'm trying to think what is one message that I can say. I think my favorite message is confidence is built through small actions. That would be my message.
Yes, absolutely. Agree. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Urmi. It was great
Thank
talking to you.
you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoy this conversation, please follow the show, leave us a comment or rating, or you can reach out to us. We love to hear from listeners. You can find links to Urmi's book, her podcast, and all of her work in the show notes. This episode was edited by Sydney at Beyond Idling, and the link is also in their show notes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.